In this video, we are going to compare auto layout and constraints. You can use both to create responsive designs, but which one would be the champion? We will compare the strengths and weaknesses of each approach, and we will show real-world example to help you understand which one is best for you. As you can see, both of these navigations are identical. However, as soon as we toggle the layers, we see that the top one is built with auto layout by the icon. If we hover over the second one, it's actually built using traditional frames. So if we start with the top one and select it, as you can see, if we try to resize the navigation, it is responsive, which is exactly what we need. Also, if I go ahead and try to add another button, all I have to do is hold Command and D to duplicate. And as you can see, the navigation is being responsive as I add and remove elements. In future, if I decide to not use this, I can simply drag this out, delete this. And as you can see, my navigation is being adaptive because it's being built with auto layout. Moreover, as soon as I go ahead and start typing and add more menu items, you see that the other navigation items are being responsive as I type. However, if I go ahead and click on the second navigation, which is being built traditionally, if we take a look at the left hand side, everything is built using frames with no auto layout in mind. So if I go ahead and resize this, you see that only the image gets resized. We can use constraints to fix this. If I Command Z that and click on this one, you see that the constraint icon appears. Now I have the ability to set this element in a fixed position, which is like top right. So by clicking on these two icons, now I made that element constrained to the right side. So if I go ahead and resize the navigation, is exactly working as the one up top. However, if I go ahead and try to visit this, for example, if I decide to add another button, I can Command D that, but you see that it is not being responsive. So every single time that I have to add and remove an element, all I have to do is basically try to navigate to the layers, click on the rest of them, and start moving them, and then click one more time and start moving them like that. This is a very time consuming process, so if you have to constantly update your elements, you don't want to keep readjusting them. Even though constraints is going to be helpful in the first run, that makes your navigation responsive, but in the long run, if you decide to add and remove items, using constraint is not a good idea. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have a component that is documenting what has been done. On the top side we have dates, and then here on the right side we are giving each task a status. If I click on the top one, as you can see, it is built with auto layout. So if I go ahead and try to zoom out here, you see it is being responsive. And not only that, if I try to resize this, it's also growing from the height as well as wrapping the elements. So with one single layout, I can actually create multiple different responsive points and making sure my elements are adaptive. We already know that if I decide to add and remove dates on the top, my menu is being updated as I remove them. The component down below is built with only frames in mind. Here you see everything is a frame. So if we decide to resize them, you see it is not responsive. So what we can do is we can click on the top one and visit the constraint panel and making sure it is actually constrained to left and right plus the top. So we want to select 3 of these. So if we now try to resize this, you see that the background color is being resized, which is exactly what we want. Also, if we click at the menu items here, the tabs, we also want to constrain this to the right side, so top and right. So if we go ahead and try to resize this, you see now the top menu is being adaptive. Again, in the short term, you can't actually add constraint to every single element, but if you decide to add and remove, in this example, I want to remove that, you see the menu is not being adaptive. Again, we have another example. Here we are using auto layout. So as you can see, we are resizing our navigation, and we see that the middle navigation is always centered. The right navigation is always on the right side, and our logo is always on the left side. So here we are only using auto layout to resize the top navigation and making sure everything is center aligned. And as you can see, the buttons at the bottom are not being resized properly. If you are using auto layout, all you have to do is double clicking on your button and making sure they are set to fill, as well as the bottom one, you can set both of them to fill by only clicking 2 times to setting them to fill. Now you have all your buttons being responsive as well as your navigation item being aligned properly. And down the line, if I decide not to use the beddings and more, I can simply click on that, delete that, and exactly everything stays in the middle. Now if I go ahead and try to zoom in, here we have constraints, so I can basically zoom out. As you can see, it is not working, so we can't fix that using constraint. We can double click on the top menu, and we also want to go one level deeper. So here we have the logo, so we can again click on the logo, making sure it is constrained to the top left. we can click on the buttons on the right hand side and making sure they are constrained to the right and top. And finally, we would click on the middle navigation and we make sure that it is constrained to center and center. So if I go ahead and click on the constraints now, if I go ahead and resize this, you see that it is exactly working as expected. However, by now you know that if I decide to remove and add something, if I delete that, it is going to leave a gap, and I have to constantly adjust the buttons manually. If you do want to learn about auto layout, I have a complete step-by-step tutorial that would teach you how to use auto layout in 20 easy steps. So I'll add a link to this auto layout tutorial in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more design tips and tutorials, and let me know what you think in the comments down below.